Almighty is saying to Abraham, Lech lecha artzecha veit avicha el haaretz asher arecha. Rabbi here starts the odyssey of the Jewish people. Go out, Aram Narayim, and come to Israel. So what's the purpose of it? What does it say in this portion? The promised land, by Yikov B'Shem Hashem, and he calls in the name of God. Calls in the name of God. What's he doing? What's that grand? The Medrash says that it's a mushal, a parable. What is this like? The great king is in the provinces, and he finds a very worthwhile young man there in the provinces who is lighting the way in the darkness for the king. And he finds favor in the eyes of the king, the emperor. He says, until you're here in the provinces, why don't you come to the palace? You be my keeper of the palace. Light my way in the palace. And he sends Abraham to light his way, and what does it mean to light the way of the creator of this universe? So we, the Jewish people, we are continuing this odyssey of Abraham. Abraham was here in this world, in the first paragraph about Abraham. The lives that he created, he created these lives by showing them what life is about. That's what life is about. You create a human being when you take him out of I's worship, out of crocodile worship, and introduce him to the creator of the universe. That's what Lech Lecha is really about, that character. And that's what Vayikol B'Shem Hashem. He proclaimed the name of God. The Jewish people all these years, the last prayer that we say, after every davening, whether it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or every davening, the last prayer, the last sentence we say is Bayom Ahu Yiyeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. And that day, the day that we are awaiting, and let it be soon, the Almighty will be one, and He will be known as one. Shmo, His name, the way people recognize Him, will be known as one. Until that day, we proclaim in the morning and we proclaim at night. And before we go to sleep and before we pray. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Till then we are proclaiming Hashem Echad. The Almighty is one. What do you mean the Almighty is one? What does it mean? In that day they will know. That's what Abraham was calling. That's what the Almighty says, light my way. Hashem Echad is a mitzvah. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. It is the most essential mitzvah. L'yachdo is to know that all that we are seeking, all that we're seeking, is the Almighty. That's all that it is. That's all that all men are seeking. It's like a mystery. The Jewish people claim in the morning and at night. And we say in the day of the Messiah, the day when the world will, the brotherhood of man, all mankind will know. And you shall love the eternal, your God, with all your desire, and with all your life, and with all your possessions. That's what it says. Thing that we have accomplished in this world that we still get credit. There isn't much that they give us credit for. Love your neighbor as yourself, they don't know it comes from out. They won't give us credit for that. Peace on earth, brotherhood of man, up at the UN building, I was born in New York, up at the UN building on First Avenue, and have the Isaiah wall. That's the way it says, he will turn the sword into plowshare. But when they say peace on earth, we want the idea of peace. They don't say that the Jewish people taught us. They always birthed us. Justice for all. Love your neighbor. We are our brother's keepers. They don't give us credit. One thing, they still are giving us credit. Out there, they're still giving us credit, and that's money. the electron, and time and space. That they still get a credit for. And that concept is the essential concept that we gave them, a God who is our Father in heaven. There's nothing that we can do for our Creator. He created everything. What can we do for our Creator? What can man do for God who created electrons and time and space? Time and space are creation. The Jewish people, we always knew this. Time is not immutable, and space is not eternal. Their creation. It took a nice Jewish boy, his name was Albert Einstein, to show the formula, that time and space itself are just another aspect of mass and energy. He showed it in the formula, in the theory of relativity. But we always knew it. Time and space itself, the Almighty creation, we call it yesh ma'ayin, for nothing. So what can you do for the Creator who created everything? Yesh ma'ayin, for nothing. We're going to give him a set of, we're going to bring breakfast in bed one morning, we're bring him his slippers, tell him how great he is. Can we tell him how great he is? This concept of monotheism, that there's nothing that you can do for God, that you can't bring him any sacrifice. But then what is it that we can do for God? Love your neighbors. What is it that we can do for God? Love the eternal, your God, the creator of all of us, with all that you possess, which is love is pleasure. So in Judaism we say, you want to proclaim the name of God, you want to know, that you want to go in the tradition of our father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and call in the name of God. This is what we've got to teach men. And we've got to teach to the Jew. Love, God. One pleasure. We have to teach what the Almighty came to teach us. What pleasure is really about. What is life about? It's a very difficult thing in Western society for people to accept that our job in this world, our efforts, our work in this world, for the 70 years that we had, is but one purpose. It's but one purpose, to serve God. Because that's all there is, echad. Echad, to serve God. How? By enjoying the creation that He made. That's our job. By Yitzchak B'Shem Hashem. The purpose of Avraham Avinu was to teach mankind chesed, to teach mankind that the world was created to give us pleasure and to give them pleasure. So all of the Torah is there just to teach us this. And I'd like to be the subject of this evening to tell you what pleasures are available. What pleasures really there are in this world from the Torah. The Torah teaches us. What pleasures really are there available to man? It teaches us in the Shema. The Torah teaches us that there are really 5 different classes of pleasure. Anybody on an international flight, you know that there are 3 classes. It's first class, everybody knows first class. Yeah, they call it first class. Then there's second class. What do they call that? They call it second class. Ambassador, business class, executive travel, right? Why don't they call it second class? You can sell a ticket, right? Then they had third class on the plane. What do they call that? Economy, tourist. Why don't they call it third class? You couldn't sell a ticket. It's like third class ticket. No way. Pay $600 for it. Wow. Third class. Not going to get anybody. If they had a 4th class, so they had first class, second class, third class, they don't call it that. If they had a 4th class, they put you into the luggage compartment. A 5th class, they give you a rope and you hang on. Most human beings are traveling fifth class pleasure. So they're really just hanging on. And occasionally, God forbid, they let go. Somebody who's taking drugs is letting go. You know, he says several things. Is that right? He's letting go. There are people who actually commit suicide. He says they let go. Their pleasure is not enough. If you're in the luggage compartment, it's a little hard to let go, but you can do it too. If you're in third class, if you're in the cabin, if you're in third class, you never can let go. What's fifth class pleasure? Remember, fifth class pleasure is just hanging on. But it happens to be the pleasure that most human beings, if you think about it, most human beings will spend most of their lives chasing. Fifth class pleasure. And they're just hanging on. Just hanging on. And even if they don't let go, sometimes they contemplate. Hey, here's the word down. What's fifth class pleasure? Well, most human beings spend most of their lives chasing. And that is physical and material pleasure. Money can buy. And what money can buy? Health, beautiful day, gorgeous house, a boat, music, art, good food, wine, drink, music, pleasure. You've got to appreciate it. Avraham Avinu, that's what he dealt with. Fifth class pleasure. He brought them in, he gave them good food, the best food. Yeah. He told them this beautiful world is it's pleasure. I'm not negating it. But if that's all you got, you're just hanging on. Now, even in fifth class, there's an awful lot that people have to know. The first thing that they have to know is that you've got to learn how to have pleasure. You see, people think pleasure comes naturally. The pleasure is a child pleasure. It's not true. Fifth class pleasure, you also have to learn how to enjoy it. Everybody knows that if you're really interested in music, it would be helpful to have a good professor and take a course at university from a good professor who appreciates music, and it would enhance your appreciation of music. And art, it's recommended. I mean, music, we can pick it up ourselves, but art, really, you appreciate, especially modern art. You better have a good professor who knows his stuff and can communicate it. Otherwise, you might be bluffing us all when you say, wow. But a good professor, he knows his stuff, he might get you to enjoy it. I don't know if you people know that in the really top universities, they have a course in a very simple wine tasting. Did you ever hear that? Oxford, Harvard, wine tasting. If you like wine, it's recommended. Because if you like wine, if you don't like wine, don't take the course. But if you like wine, before you spend a couple of $100 on the bottle of wine, you really should take the course. Otherwise, you're not appreciating it. You gotta smell it. I mean, some people might give us a course in one evening. For those who enjoy wine, you gotta smell it, you gotta look at the bouquet, the odor. I mean, and people know that. But the same thing goes. You know, the pleasure of moving your arms and your legs, the pleasure of dance. I mean, try it when you walk home. Try it. It's a fabulous pleasure. Don't wait until God forbid you can't move to have the pleasure of moving. Pleasure of seeing. We make a bracha on it to remind ourselves to enjoy it. But it takes an effort. It takes an effort. Everything requires an effort. Even fifth class pleasure. And there's some beautiful fifth class pleasure. It's still only fifth class. There's another thing that you got to know about each class of pleasure. You got to appreciate that, you see, there's an exchange rate. People don't realize there's an exchange rate. If somebody would give you $100,000 for that watch, would you sell it? Everybody says, sure, $100,000, of course. No. 100,000 prutot. You people remember the prutat? There's 100 prutat to a lira. It was 10 lira to a shekel. Now there's 2,000 of those old shkalim to $1. 100,000 prutot, you got 3 cents. The American dollar, the South African dollar, there's the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar. It's not all the same. You got no exchange rate. So if you're looking for light, you walk into a store, you say, I want a lot of light. Somebody looks at you, what do you mean a lot of light? A lot, a lot. A whole room full of light. Come on, speak up. What is the exchange rate? They call it in English, in the United States, they call it watts. I guess over here too, watts, right? A watt is 1 candle power. You understand? So if you say, oh, you want a lot of light, and I say, how much light do you want? 100 watts. Oh, that's a lot of light, 100 watts. You say 100,000 watts, that's a lot of light. Yeah? Now he knows what you're talking about. You walk into a store and you say, I want a powerful motor. How powerful? Very powerful. Got to use the exchange rate. What's the exchange rate on motors?
Horsepower.
Horsepower. I said horsepower, right? 100 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower. 10,000. Pleasure. How do you measure? Is seeing the same as having an ice cream cone, as listening to a birdie, as dancing, as beautiful sunset? What's the exchange rate? You've got to be able to appreciate the exchange rate and understand how to choose your place. Does that make sense? You need the exchange rate. So, I'll let you in on a little secret. You know what the exchange rate is? Horsepower. You know, horsepower is how much a horse can schlep in a certain amount of time, right? Pleasure is supposed to give you energy. If you think, how much energy will you have after you listen to a piece of music, you know how much pleasure you get. How much pleasure you have from being able to see, you know how much pleasure you're getting. How much pleasure from a game of bowling. How much pleasure from looking at a sunset. This is what you have to learn how to estimate. Very important. In each class, you got to learn how to enjoy it. It doesn't come naturally. You got to make an effort to enjoy it. You got to know the exchange rate, and then you got to know a third thing. Very important. You see, if somebody gave me $100,000 for this watch, what would you say? Is that a good deal? Sure. Sell it, Rabbi. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. So I take the $100,000. The first thing I do is I go to a store to buy 10 watches, right? What, 5 on this hand, 5 on that. I still got $99,000 left. Even if it's a much more expensive watch than this. Then the cops arrest me. What's the matter? Why would they arrest me? I just spent $1,000 on watches that I got from this gentleman. Why did they arrest me? Counterfeit money? Isn't that right? Counterfeit money? You gotta watch out for counterfeit. In each category, class of pleasure, you've got to watch out for counterfeit pleasure. Now everybody knows that there's counterfeit pleasure. Everybody knows that drugs are counterfeit pleasure. The people who are on drugs, they come home to their parents, they say, wow, did I find a pleasure? Parents want pleasure. They say, wonderful, so what's up? Heroin. God save me. What's the matter? No one to charge that pleasure? Of course he wants to charge that. It's not pleasure. It's dream. It's innovating. It's not energizing. A drug addict doesn't come out with energy. He comes out innovating. He's dying. Well, everybody knows lust, you know. These magazines, you know. It's not good for them. It's a tummy ache. It's no good. It's exciting. It's innovating, not energizing. But the most prevalent counterfeit pleasure that's being bought in Western society, in the fifth time, is, you've heard the expression that Westerners are decadent. Did you ever hear that Westerners are decadent? Yeah, everybody knows. Very few people have the definition. What's decadent? And the simple definition of decadence is if you ask a Westerner, what would you say, what's the opposite of pain? What would you say? The opposite of pain? Pleasure. That's what a Westerner answers. Yeah? And that is the definition of decadence. Because in reality, the opposite of pain is comfort. The opposite of pain is no pain, comfort. To have in your mind that pleasure, the opposite of pain is pleasure, is to equate the opposite of pain as comfort with pleasure. If you think that your pleasure is to be comfortable, that's what pleasure is. That's decadence. In reality, pain is the price we have to pay for pleasure. You want pleasure, you gotta pay in pain. You want to be fit, you gotta pay in pain. You want pleasure, you want to build a business, you gotta pay in pain. You want to make a cabinet, you gotta pay in pain. You want a job, you feel fit, you gotta pay in pain. The Westerner, the ultimate pleasure is to be comfortable. See, I'm a Westerner too, please, you know. And it always hits me, you know. Can you imagine a white breeze, the palms swaying, music, cold wind on the waterbed, the surf pounding, relax. You're so relaxed, boy, you're almost asleep. Oh, that's what. Gotta be careful. If you're a little more relaxed, you fall asleep, you miss it all.
What is
If you hang on, you're almost asleep. Ah, boy, that's good. That's almost asleep. In reality, pain is the price you pay for pleasure. So you say to young people, tell me, young man, what's the greatest pleasure your parents have in this world? Come on, speak up. Don't be special. Children, right? Me, yeah? You. Huh? Okay, what's the greatest pain your parents have in this world?
Me.
One time, I say to a young lady, what's the greatest pleasure your parents have in this world? She says, me. I say, what's the greatest pain your parents have in this world? She says, my sister. To understand, the greatest pleasure most human beings will ever have in this world is their children. And if you think you're going to have children without pain, you're dreaming. You're dreaming. It just doesn't happen. So you say to these young Westerners, you're going to have children? Yeah, thank God they still want children. Say, how many children do you have? They say, 2. Say, why are you going to have 2? Pleasure of having children, you know. Well, if it's such pleasure, why not have 12? Oh, no. What's the matter? Too much pleasure? Watch out for counterfeit. Pain is necessary. It's not the opposite. It's necessary. For pleasure, you want pleasure, even to enjoy using your eyes, you have to make an effort. You have to remind yourself. You have to make a bracha in the morning. To enjoy using your hands and your legs, which is fabulous pleasure. Really, if you make an effort, it's a fabulous pleasure. You make a bracha, matya, asuri, and you remember, you feel it, and it's a pleasure. And it's energizing. It is energizing. Walking down the street is energizing. Don't wait until, God forbid, you break a leg and then you can walk down the street. It's energizing now. But that's still 5th class pleasure. It's real, it's good. You gotta learn how to enjoy it. You gotta know the exchange rate, and you gotta watch out for the counterfeits. But it's only 5th class. What's 4th class pleasure? When you come to another class of pleasure, there's no exchange rate. There's no exchange rate. No amount of 5th class pleasure will buy you a human a 4th class pleasure. It's very real. No amount of 5th class pleasure unit. A fourth class unit, no exchange. What's fourth class? Fourth class pleasure is the greatest pleasure that most human beings will ever have in their whole life. And what's that? What's it? Go on. Children, that's it. Children. It's real. You see, people who love their children, if you ask people who love their children, I'll give you $10 million for one of your kids. $10 million. But one of your kids, nothing will happen to them. They just move to Israel and you'll never see them again the rest of your life. Oh, terrible. Yeah. $10 million. Nothing will happen to them. You'll never hear from them. You won't see what happened to them. You won't know about them. It's okay. No better take. What do you say? No, do you think? 909? What? No better take. Not anybody loves his children. It's my confidence. That means it's a greater pleasure. Confused about it. Because here's this guy, you see, he won't take $10 million for one of his children, not $50 million. He asks me, how much time you spend with your children? He says, who's got time? $40 million a year, you know. I gotta work like a beaver. Yeah, I don't have time for my kids. I gotta support them. I gotta take care of them. Who's got time to enjoy it? Yeah. Say, wait a moment, $10 million, you know. You make even 5%, you make $500,000 a year, right? You don't have to work anymore, right? So, what are you talking about? You have something worth $10 million, you don't have time to enjoy it. He says, you know, Rabbi, you're right. You know what, you're right, Rabbi. And he takes those 2 weeks he's going to spend with his son. 2 weeks only with his son. And off they go. No telephones, not nothing. He's going to enjoy his son. Next morning you get a telephone call. What's up? He's on the phone. What's up? What do I do with the kid? Pinched him. What do I do with him? You see, we know we love them and somehow they aggravate us and we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to enjoy it. What do we have to do? We have to take a course in art appreciation, music appreciation, wine tasting, or loving. There's a course of loving. We have to have a mitzvah, we have to come over. We have to hear the hospital. Every Jew, it can be loved with exquisite pleasure. Exquisite pleasure. Fourth class pleasure. Of course, it takes a little training. But it's a different class of pleasure. You know, people don't realize, you know when they realize it's real? I'll give you an illustration that this is real, this pleasure of God is real. I'll give you an illustration. Yeah? What's the illustration? So, you take a man who, a young woman, you know, and you say, look, I'll give you $50 million for one of your kids. You know? And she said, no. Now, if you would put the $50 million on the table, you know what I'm saying? Count it up, and there it is, the Brinks truck, and there it is, $50 million. It's a lot of money, right? And for that, minus the $50 million. And you say, take it away, take it away, take it away. And they cut off the $50 million. What does the young gentleman do the rest of the day? He says, take away the $50 million. What will he do the rest of the day? What will he do? Think about it. You follow the child around the whole day and say, $50 million. $50 million. How is it? The whole day you're looking at $50 million. You're learning how to love. That's it. is there? Painting, music, yeah, and $51. It's beautiful for life. Not a charge. All that painting, everything.
There's an overflow out here. We can't hear you very well. Can you speak slightly louder?
Sure. Why can't we come We were speaking about the five classes of pleasure. And we mentioned that people who come with an international flight, everybody knows that there are three classes on that flight. There's first class, and they call it first class. There's second class, but nobody ever bought a second class ticket on an airplane. They call it executive, business class, ambassador, or silver class. They have all kinds of wonderful names, but never second class, because people do not want to travel second class. Then they have a third class. Third class, they call it tourist, economy, cabin, everything under the sun. In the South African Airways, they call it diamond, gold, silver. You're going silver class. Not bad. Not bad. If they had a fourth class, they put you into the luggage compartment. Fifth class, they give you a rope and you hang on. I'm saying that there are five classes of pleasure. People who are traveling fifth class, the lowest class of pleasure, are essentially just hanging on to it. They're just hanging on. And sometimes they let go. They actually let go. They're so crushed, they figure it isn't worth living, God forbid. And those who get, God forbid, drunk, or who go on dope, and they're really crashing. You see, they let it go. They quit it. It's a quitting. And God forbid, people who have a nervous breakdown. It doesn't mean that they're choosing, but it's too much of an answer. It's too much of an answer. It's happening. It's happening all around us. That's only because they're traveling fifth class. Fifth class pleasure is physical and material pleasure. Most people spend all their lives thinking about it, working for it, trying to get it, and doing their darnest to live it. It's only fifth class. And we're not negating it, please. We believe in it. It's great. On the contrary. We say learn how to enjoy it, because you got to learn how to enjoy fifth class pleasure. You got to learn how to enjoy every class, but even fifth class. We say learn how to enjoy using your hands and your feet. It's such a pleasure. And when you say Mate Asurim in the morning, you make brachas to the Jewish people, they're supposed to enjoy it. When you thank God for giving you something good, you're supposed to enjoy it. When your children thank you for a present, you would like to see them enjoy it. Not just say, okay, thank you. When we say Pokeach Yivnim, you're supposed to enjoy being able to see is a fabulous thing. If we weren't able to see we had it, we would be thrilled to pieces for a whole week until we got used to it. Sit and learn how to enjoy it. Why waste it? Got to learn how to enjoy every pleasure. But physical material is only fifth class. There's fourth class pleasure. What we were explaining before with fourth class pleasure is different classes means that there's no exchange rate. There's no amount of fifth class pleasure that will buy you 1 unit of fourth class pleasure. And that is love. Love is fourth class pleasure. And when we talk about children, children are the greatest pleasure most human beings will ever have in their lives. Children are the greatest pleasure that most human beings will ever have in their lives. It's far more than any opera, than any steak dinner, yacht, travel around the world, music, art. A child is much, much more, much more. You say people have to learn how to be real, how to enjoy it. So if you're spending money on your children, and you're spending a lot of money, and if you wouldn't take $50 million for one of them, or $10 million, well then appreciate it. Don't wait until somebody piles it on the table and you say, take it away, and then you appreciate it. We can do the same. You see, love is the same. We do it with our students. We say, if I gave you $100,000 cash, I wouldn't tempt them with $10 million, but $100,000 cash, you'll never see your father the rest of your life. Nothing will happen to him, God forbid. But you'll never see him again the rest of your life. Guy says, no, I'm not going to take it. Ridiculous. Say, well, what if I put the cash on the table and you said, take it away? What would you do? The next thing you do? I'll call my father. Isn't that right? You've got to, you see, the point that I'm making is the Torah is teaching us, the Almighty is teaching us, children, this is a gorgeous world, you've got to learn how to enjoy it. Vayichlo b'shem Hashem, that's Avraham Avinu, that's Am Yisrael, that's what we're doing. That's when we say, Vayoyim Avinu, Hashem Echad U'Shloyav. This is a beautiful world, the Almighty gave it to us for nothing, because He loves us. He's our Father in heaven. But we've got to make the effort to enjoy it. There's nothing that you can do for your children to avoid the necessity of their making an effort to enjoy what you do for them. There's no way. There's no way. You have to learn to take the responsibility of using the advantages that you want to give them. If they're not going to take the advantages, if they're not going to take the opportunities that you give them, there's nothing you can do for them. The Almighty protects us. The Almighty created this world for us, for our pleasure. We have to make the effort. Okay, so what's third class pleasure? Go on. What's third class pleasure? What? All over the world, people are willing to give up their children, their wives and their children, and their lives. For what? For learning? For what? For what? For peace? For wars. Look, the Palestinians, are they willing to send their kids out to get shot? I say, go. If we were Israelis, would we want our children in the army? If the Arabs would invade, would you want your children? If you were an Israeli, we have to protect our people. All over the world, people will protect themselves. They'll send their children to protect their nation. It's so far. When I was a child in the United States, they used to have a hero. It was Nathan Hale. People don't know about Nathan Hale, but he was a guy who was in the American Revolutionary Army, and he spied on the British, and the British hung him. And they asked him, do you have a statement before you die? And he said, I have but one regret, that I have but one life to give for my country. That's the way today they say to women. Okay, but there's still a cause. You see, everybody will die to be good. So to bring it to your attention, to your appreciation, that you're willing to die to be good, so we ask the Westerners, if somebody, you know, the terrorists take hostages 1,000 innocent children, 1,000 innocent children that are not threatening, right? Strangers, but innocent. They're not throwing stones at you. They're just standbys, hostages, you know, like the Iraqis have, hostages. They didn't do anything to Iraq. They just want a hostage. And they take 1,000 innocent children as hostages and they say, okay, now either you kill them or we kill you. Do you get the picture? Either you kill them or we kill you. Would you kill them? You have a knife, go ahead and kill them. You couldn't do it even if you wanted to. God forbid you stabbed one child and he started yelling. He'd say, take me away. Is that right? Do you see that? Please. So I asked the seller. He says, of course I wouldn't, Rabbi. I said, why not? He says, it's wrong. I say, didn't you ever do anything wrong in your life? Did you ever do anything wrong in your life? He says, sure I did. So you do 1,000 more. No, he says, it's too wrong. Come on, what are you quibbling? Too wrong, 10 wrong. He says, no. It doesn't pay. You hear what the man says? It doesn't pay. What are you talking about? We know that to be good is worth dying for. Something in us. Amazing. We're done with it. But it's there. Would you all agree that I am willing to die for Am Yisrael? Yeah, me. I'm willing to agree. I'm willing to die. No hesitation. Would you tell me, look, if you want to die for the Jewish people, then live for them? Doesn't that make sense?
Of course.
Of course, right? Okay. So now I'm willing to die for the Jewish people. I'm willing to live for the Jewish people. Would you say, hey, listen, if you want to die for the Jewish people, you're willing to live for the Jewish people, why don't you learn how to enjoy them? Does that make sense? If you want to die for it, live for it. If you want to die and live for it, well, then it's pretty silly not to enjoy it. So if you want to die to be good, live to be good. If you want to die and live to be good, you got to learn how to enjoy it. So, you know, again, people, you got to be real. This is a reality. People are dying to be good all over the world. The Palestinians and the Iraqis and the Saudis and the Vietnamese and the Irishmen all want to be good. It's real. You too want to be good. But I'll give you an illustration to make it real. See, you've got to make it real, that you see that it's a pleasure, that you really find it a pleasure, and you'll understand a little bit about the dynamics, you see, and a little bit about how to enjoy being good. So, how many of you people, have you ever visit New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, people come to New York still?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're visiting New York, you know the East River? I'll tell you a secret, don't tell anybody, but when I was a kid, I used to swim in the East River. Nowadays, nobody swims in the East River. No more. Yeah. The East River is one of the worst polluted rivers in the world. Yeah? You don't want to look too close at it. Don't look too close. Hold Manhattan, Brooklyn, don't look. But the tourists, they take a boat. They call it the Circle Line around Manhattan. Beautiful. That boat is high up. You know, beautiful day, wind. You don't see nothing. Beautiful. It's one of the highlights. Trip around Manhattan. Okay, so you're on this boat. You're a tourist, you're in Manhattan. You're on this boat, and you're standing there, you enjoy yourself. And an acquaintance, you make an acquaintance, a friend of yours, an acquaintance. He slips and he falls into the river. You hear that? He falls in. You know how to swim? Right? The friend, he's drowning. He can't swim. You go in? Sure you go in, right? You go in, pardon me, but the first thing that hits you, you throw up. But the guy's drowning, you strengthen yourself, right? You strengthen yourself. A man's drowning, yeah? You strengthen yourself and you grab him, yeah? Your hands are full of the goo. Throw up twice more. The man is drowning, you strengthen yourself, you grab him again. This time he tries to kill you. You know, the guy desperately tries to kill you, yeah? Now what's going on in your mind? Why they ever come to New York? Why did this guy die before his son grew? Why did I have to be around here? I never should have gotten up this morning. You know, for me, I'm suffering. That's in your mind. But the man's drowning. They grab him. He's trying to drown you. You go down. You know what you do. You go down until he leaves go. He climbs on top of you. You come up behind him. You grab him. And now you're swimming against the current. These rivers. And all this time you're grasping. And it stinks. And finally, you're out. Okay, you get to the hotel. You take 20 hot baths. 100 hot showers, so you can be in the same room with yourself, right? Now, the next thing you do, the first plane out of New York, you're never going to visit New York the rest of your life. Yeah? Okay? 20 years later, we're having a meeting and we say, tell me, what was the greatest day of your life? What comes to mind? You know, I was in New York, and a guy slipped off the boat, and he was drowning, and believe me, I threw up 3 times. I thought I was going to die, but I held out. I struggled, I saved him. And you want to meet him? He lives down the block. Is that a fact or not? Yeah. Thrilled out of your life. 20 years later. So the first lesson about enjoying being good is always do it after the fact. Not while you're taking out the garbage for your parents, but afterwards. You get it? Afterwards. You were good. You understand? Not while you're apologizing, but afterwards. Yeah? Always after the fact. So every night, you should, every one of us does an awful lot to be good. Yeah? Well, we do a lot of things during the day. And most of the time, we're complaining about it. Right? But at night, before we go to sleep, we should try to enjoy it. Because after the fact, that's the easiest time to enjoy being good. But it's very real. See, the first yeshiva that I made was in 1966. And I had the ultimate audacity, because I didn't have the cash, so I had the ultimate audacity of fundraising in Israel amongst Israelis in order to save Americans from their ignorance. So of course I sought out the most idealistic Israelis that I could find. And they, quite a fraction of them, had been in the Stern Gang, or in Lehi, or in the Irgun, or in the early Haganah. Quite a few of the people who were really the people who gave me my first money to start the first yeshiva in 1966. First yeshiva from Bali Shemar. So one of the people that I went to see was a fellow in Haifa. And he was a very rich man, a youngish man, young fellow. And I went up there because he was in the Stern Gang. He told me a story that when he started, the Stern Gang was the real radical. I mean, they were like, if anybody called, nobody should be called a terrorist amongst them because they only fought British soldiers. They never killed a civilian intentionally. Never. But at the same time, they were ready to shoot British soldiers wherever they found them, anytime, any place. That's a little bit radical. So the Jewish community was against them. Their parents and their brothers and their sisters were ready to turn them over to the British and to the Haganah, to get rid of them. They were against them. They were against this. So this gentleman joined the Stern gang. So of course he went underground. And his parents wouldn't want nothing to do with him. His brothers and sisters wouldn't want. So he was alone. And on top of that, the rule was that you had to carry a gun at all times, and you couldn't be taken prisoner. You had to shoot or be shot. And you had to get out or be killed. That's it. You couldn't be taken prisoner. That was your undertaking when you joined the Stern gang. So he had to carry the gun. And that meant whenever he walked down the street, he would be looking 5 blocks ahead of him, to the right, to the back, to the back, because they would put up roadblocks and start your identity, etc. And he couldn't be injured. He'd have to scram because he was shooting and shot. So this is the way he lived for 5 years. Finally, he was caught. He was taken prisoner. How was he taken prisoner? He's not allowed. Well, they put a cordon around the venue in Tel Aviv, around the marketplace. They put a cordon. From all the street corners, they came at one time. They cordoned, and they ringed off the whole place, and they had the Jews in the middle. And he couldn't take out his gun to shoot because there were too many people around. I mean, you can't kill civilians, right? Especially Jews. So he got rid of the gun, but they had an informer with a hood. And they pointed him out, he was taken prisoner, and he was tortured. Pardon me, you still have some allegiance to the British? At any rate, he was mistreated by some bad Britishers. And he lost a leg. He lost a leg. He was actually, they had to amputate it. In 1948, the British left. He got out of jail. And he couldn't go to the army. Everybody, every able-bodied man was in the army and for many years at that time. So he went in business. He went into import-export, made a lot of money, started a car agency, various import, he had exclusive, he became a very rich man. And he married a wonderful woman, he has children, a very happy man, and he's an idealistic, wonderful man, very wonderful. We had a nice time talking together, nice chat. When I was leaving, I turned to him and I asked him, tell me, what was the most wonderful time of your life? Your children were born, when you were courting your wife, the honeymoon, when you were a child, what was the most wonderful time of your life? He says, Rabbi, those 5 years, when I was fighting for the destiny of the Jewish people, well, how can you compare it? But, I have nothing to complain about. I love my wife, I love my children, and really God has been very good to me. But those 5 years, do you see that those 5 years, he was living for a cause. He was living for a cause. So in Jewish tradition, when you say the Shema, you're supposed to say, love the eternal your God with all your desire, with your life. And you're supposed to imagine that you're going to give your life for the Jewish people, not to worship idols. Kiddush Hashem. You're supposed to put it, even children. It's not that we think death is such a marvelous thing. No, we don't like to die. But we say, you want your children to enjoy life? If you don't know what you're willing to die for, you haven't begun living. You're playing with monopoly money. You know the difference between monopoly money and counterfeit money? Nobody ever walked into a grocery store with monopoly money. Counterfeit money, you have an illusion. Monopoly, no illusion. If you don't know what you're willing to die for, everything is flat. Everything, your life is lacking body, is lacking punch, is lacking substance. If you know what you want to die for, that's why you say, love the Almighty with all your life. Because knowing I'm willing to die for the Jewish people gives you a sense of life is serious and valuable. Otherwise, not. If you don't live for what you want to die for, you haven't really lived. If you've never found cause to really dedicate yourself to something that you want to die for, you haven't really lived. If you went into the Easter event and you saved the man, you'd complain the whole bloody time. But the rest of your life, you'd know that you did something meaningful and great effort. And it will be a pleasure that you will wear forever. There's so many meaningful things to do with great effort. So many that you can achieve. Taste yourself some third-class pleasure. When you have third-class pleasure, you know what you want to die for. You never are interested in drugs or alcohol or you never think life isn't worthwhile. No. You're in the cabin. Second-class pleasure. I hope I've convinced you. Good is powerful. Second-class pleasure would take a lot more, but it's very, very real. Very real. It's a different class of pleasure. Look, the way we most of us know second-class pleasure, physical material. Fourth class, greatest pleasure most human beings ever had, love, children. It really should be a wife, a husband, but it's much easier, children. You come to Esha Torah in Jerusalem, they'll teach you how a wife and a husband. It's really not that difficult. It's just this generation. It's such a tragedy, you know, they pick their wives and they're crazy about it. They pick their husbands and they're crazy about it, yeah? And then they fight over the kids. Who's going to keep the kids? They didn't even know what they're going to get. It's tragic. Occasionally I have a youngster and I ask him, what's the greatest pleasure your parents have in this world? And he says, each other. And I know that kid, boy, his parents have given him a tremendous head start to live. Isn't that true? Tremendous head start. But there's to learn. And it's all in Torah. But that's fourth class pleasure. Third class pleasure is to be good. We want to be good. We've got to be good. And that's why most of us take the counterfeit coin. Why do you think the Palestinians are dying to be good? They take the counterfeit coin. They say, kill all the Jews and we'll be free. They know, kill all the Jews and the Syrians will kill all of them. They know that. They know it. They just don't want to bother thinking about it, you know. They know that if they kill all the Jews, they'll be killing each other. Everybody knows it. Does anybody really have a doubt that if, God forbid, they killed all the Jews, they wouldn't be killing each other like in Lebanon? The Syrians wouldn't walk in there, the Jordanians, they wouldn't. Everybody knows it. You just don't want to look at it, you know. That's called How do you know whether a person is going on for the real stuff or the counterfeit? You see, you got to understand, a man dies to be good. Even though he cries, but he's enjoying being good. A man is dying for the counterfeit, he's not enjoying it. A man who can kill to be good, and you know, all this, there's a lot to learn. A man can kill to be good, but he won't be vicious, sadistic, beating a guy to death with no reason. That's only when he has the counterfeit. If he's really good, then God forbid, you gotta kill, you kill. No? I mean, that's fine. But you don't enjoy it. If you enjoy it, it means that there's something miserable about it, you see? Miserable people enjoy that. Then he's not really being good. He knows it's false. You get it's counterfeit. You got no energy. Okay, look. Second class pleasure is what will people kill millions of innocent children to get? They can't really get the real McCoy, but they have the illusion, the counterfeit. What do people kill millions to get? And they know, no reason. Come on, you know. Call it power. Power. Yeah, power. Stalin, Hitler, Marshall, Polna, Idi Amin. You heard these people, yeah? Now they're all really crazy because it's so important. It's counterfeit. What's the reality of power? What were they really looking for? What's the real power? What's the illusion that they have?
Status?
What's the real power?
Status?
Stages?
Status. Self-esteem.
That is the whole point of meaning. That's good. Domination. What is the real power? Power. Control. Not control. What's creation? That's power. That's why there's the illusion, you see? Because they think if I can kill, I can create. They think if I can control, then I can create. No. No, creation is power. The Almighty is a creator. That's power. They have this illusion. You see, they're gone. They can kill. They can't give life. The Almighty gives life. Do you know how we can give life? We can create. Simple. You can create tonight. Tonight you can create. You know how to create? Give life. How do you give life? Give energy. How do you give energy? Tonight you come home, tell your husband how much you love him. Tell your wife what you can't live without it. I mean, tell them the way the reality. Yeah? You're going to get pleasure. Tell your children how beautiful they are. Tell your parents how much you appreciate them. Don't you realize that when we give people pleasure, we're giving them life? Is that right? We can take a person who is lost. If you give him love and attention, you can save his life. I'll tell you a story about a neighbor of mine, an acquaintance of mine. I met at a simcha. His father who lived in Shmuel Novi. It's a mixed section. A very thin, diffident young man, a kohl younger man. Yeah? So he told me the story. He knows that I'm Osik in Bali Tshuva. So he tells me this story. He says that into his knisah, into his entrance in Jerusalem, he lived in a mixed neighborhood. Into his entrance moved a underworld character, a billion, an underworld character. That means a guy, walks around without a shirt, packs a gun, easy with his hands, his children, wild Indians, his wife walks around. Well, this fella is living in this knisah, and his children, sometimes they yell Shabbos, he figures maybe this guy will get aggravated, and they'll give him one sock, they'll kill him, yeah? So he takes out some insurance, so he pulls his kids around and he says, listen, this guy is a roughneck, he's a wild man, and don't you yell Shabbos, and don't yell Tzritzke, don't yell nothing, no stuff over here, and I want you to be nice to the kids, and etc., because I want to live, yeah? So he told the kid, but just to make sure, he sent a welcome basket to his family, and he greets him when he comes in, he greets him when he leaves, every day, and this goes on for a couple of months. One Shabbos, he's going to shul, this man stops him, he says, take me to shul. He takes him to shul, the guy's in shul, he says, the fellow's in shul, he sees he doesn't know what to say, he doesn't know what to daven, etc. So, shows him what to daven, the man knows Hebrew, shows him what to daven. Very nice. Another man comes over and says, invite me and my family for Shabbos, for a meal. Comes to a meal, they sing Smilot, have a nice time, everything fine. Finally, this fella, he wears a yarmulke, he has a beard, sends his kid to Cheder, his Shema Shabbos, he found himself some honest work, everything. He doesn't know what happened. Finally, one day, this man, this Bilyon, this underworld character, comes over to him before Yom Kippur. It was 2 years ago, before Yom Kippur, this man comes over to him and he says, you know, I want you to know, I thank God every day that He brought me into your Knesset, into your apartment. He said, you saved my life, you saved my children's life, you saved my whole family, you saved us. And this young Svaldi says to me, I saved his life. I was trying to save my life. You can save my life, you can give life. Just being warm, nice to people. But it goes a lot deeper than that. In Judaism we say Talmud Torah, the learning. That is power. That's the instrument of creation. It's the instrument of creation. The Almighty gave us the instrument of creation. What do you mean? If you understand these 5 levels of pleasure, and you teach it, then people are not any more confused. You can give your children a path for living. Do you understand that? Awareness. You know what you're doing. You know where you're going. What are you living for? What are you willing to die for? You know. That's a lie. Until then, you're a robot. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm in a hurry. I've got to get there. Where are you going? I don't know, but I'm late. This is power. Torah is power. Wisdom is power. The Almighty's instructions is power. And it's such a pleasure. If you know it, it's such a pleasure. All right, first class pleasure, everybody knows. Love God. So really, when the Almighty is telling us, the 5 levels of pleasure are right there. All your possessions. Then split it twice. That's your soul, that's your children, that's your love. Yetzer Tov is the desire to be good. Yetzer Ra is creation, to turn your passion into constructive purpose. And you don't like first class. But that's what you're supposed to say in the morning, that's what you're supposed to say in the evening. Listen, you gotta know where you're going, what you're living for, what you want. But before you say this, we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Before you say the whole Jewish people. When you finish saying it, you finish learning it, then at the end, the last sentence of every tefillah is all of humanity. Vayom ma'ahu yiyeh Hashem Echad u'Shmo Echad. The whole of humanity. Lech lecha, the Almighty said, Avram Avinu out. Teach it to the world. Vayikra b'shem Hashem. The prophet Yeshayahu says, Or Lagoyim. The Almighty sent us to be a light unto the nation. In the Torah it says, Mamleches Kahanim v'Goy Kodesh. We are the messengers of the Almighty. To teach them what? The Almighty loves us. To teach them what? There's nothing you can do for God. To teach them what? Monotheism. To teach them what? How to have pleasure. But we have to teach our own. We have to learn it. We have to be real. We have to make an effort. This is a fabulous, fantabulous world. If we have a creator of this universe who loves us and created this world for us, how much can we do? Let's undertake to do it together. Any questions? No, basically we have that one. We created this yeshiva 16 years ago, but like the rabbi said, I created Ol Sameach, and I created, thank God, another yeshiva of Bnei Brak, they call it Magen Avram, And many of my teachers and students have opened yeshivas, which is great. We have 10 branches. Our basic concept is to wake up the Jewish people to our heritage, to the power, to the fact that our Father in heaven, the beauty, we don't have nothing we can do for God. That's the base. And get them to teach others. So we have 10 branches that are manned by our musmochim, our ordained rabbis. In Canada, and in Australia, and in the United States. And we have discovery seminars that we brought here, that we brought to Hong Kong, that is all over the United States, and we will do more. It's just, there's no question that we have the heritage, we have the brilliance in our children, and we have the experience of our destiny. It's just that we're going to put it together. So that's our purpose. We have a yeshiva in the old city, which is like the launching pad. You know, we have an awful lot of visitors, and we have occasionally, we have students who want to stay, and those are the young men that we hope to enlist in this cause of giving power to humanity. Because if we don't know how to love, then you can talk talk about tolerance, talk about peace on earth, talk about education, talk about everything. If people don't know how to do it, they're not going to do a darn thing. They're swimming in America. They have come to us from the state of Maryland. There's a fellow, Bill Honig. He's the superintendent of the state of California education. He says they don't know how to teach morality in the schools. They took God out. How to teach morality? He says he knows our students. We can show people God and morality without mentioning God and morality. And showing them the consequences, showing them what they're living for. You got to know what you want to die for in order to be able to live. That's showing them that this is wrong, without mentioning it, because the American can't mention it. But that's what we have to do, because the young people who come through, many of them are self-proclaimed atheists, which is not really so. But they think they're atheists, you know. So we can't talk to them about God until they're there for a little while. Yeah. So we have experience, but we have such a rich heritage. That's what we're about. That's my whole. Yeah.
Rabbi, you mentioned that there are 5 levels of pleasure, and you sort of put the brain on the majority of humanity after the 4th level, working backwards. And you said the 3rd level is the requirement to do absolute good. The 2nd level requires a cause. 1st level seems too far for us to contemplate. Does your method of teaching bridge the gap between the 4th and for the 3rd and 2nd into the majority of humanity? And for the 3rd and 2nd into the majority of humanity?
In Judaism we say, and one of the things that we teach is that in Jewish consciousness we say, I don't know if you ever hear the story that when we were in our mother's womb, an angel was sent and sat with us and taught us all there is to know about creation. He certainly taught us the 5 levels of pleasure. And this is a Jewish consciousness story. Before we were 5 years old, when we were a people, everybody heard the story. The angel sent us an angel, the Almighty sent us an angel, taught us all there is to know about creation, about wisdom, and then just before we were born, the same angel, he touches us under the nose, thing, and you forget it all. How many of you heard that story? Jewish consciousness.
Today's journey, I'm willing to answer any question on privately to anyone who wishes to do so. The questions are provided at the back.